here we go. So we've got our axles done, drilled out, ready to go. We've got our brackets. This part's really important. You want that to be able to move so that when we're adjusting things, it'll work in there properly. We've got our hubs, so our brake pot. We're going to drill and put a piece of 1/4 inch doweling in there, and then this guy will be kind of like that, kind of sticking out there, and then that's your brake. So here we go. So we got this piece and this guy. Now I'm just going to do some won't be much talking here for the next little bit. I'm just going to be starting to do the main assembly here. of my favorite little sanders, Black & Decker mounts. Three-eighths-inch dowling. Honey grit, Diablo sandpaper. Test fit everything. Very, very important. Right there. So that's a 3/8 inch hole and a 3/8 inch doweling. Just gotta sand that out, or I got a file I'll use there. It's a 3/8 inch burr file, and we'll just clean that out. I like to use this one because once it goes through, it's exactly the right size that I need for my 3/8 inch doweling. So that guy's going through like nothing. There we go. Perfect. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some more stuff done here, and I'll bring you back for the next part. Okay, so we got all our goodies on here now. So we got the axles, the differentials, the drive line. I put all these guys together. Now this is what I was saying. This part was very, very important to be able to have this guy to move. Okay, so we got our airbag sitting right here. So now, as we go down, we can adjust it according to the airbags that we go in. You can make these airbags any size you want. I typically like to make them about 1 inch long. That's just my preference. You can make them, probably get away with 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, but that's your choice. So like I say, so now we're able to adjust this so that we can glue that bad boy down. I went and pre-glued all the wires that are gonna simulate the airlines into the airbags, just like we did in the other video, exactly the same as the trailer. And again, be very, very careful if you pre-glue these. Make sure they're long enough. Cutting some away because it's too long, not a big deal. Adding some, not so easy. Okay, so we'll just carry on here. I'm gonna finish on doing this. I'm gonna get our brake pots on, It's got the little bracket going on there, and that guy's going to sit right down in here. Now I got to move that wire out of the way, but basically it's going to kind of sit like this inside there. So we got the line coming out from the brake drum. Not quite sure. Oh yeah, you can kind of see that. Yeah. So we got the line coming out, and that's just going to go right onto there. You don't want to have it like this, because then you got your tires. When you put that on there, now your brake pot is higher than your tires, or lower, however you want to look at it. And now these will drag on the ground and your tires won't spin freely. So always got to make sure they're down below. If you're ever curious, just double check. It only takes a sec. And we are good. I will bring you back here shortly. Okay, so all the wires are strung out, air tanks are put in, brake pots, airbags, tires. Pretty tight in there, but that's the way she goes when you want to make it look as realistic as possible. So now I'm going to put in the last axle here. Important to mention that you do want these snug, not tight, but snug, so that they can turn. Over time, these will loosen up. So the more snug you have it, but not tight, the longer that it will take the punishment of turning, spinning, whatever. And then there's our other one. We just wiggle her on there, throw a little glue. You don't need too much, just a little bit. And then you just spin it on. Sounds kind of like a chipmunk. Here we go. So this is obviously a tri-drive truck that we're doing to pull that triaxle trailer. So now we got all that done. Now we gotta get to work on the front end. We got an engine to make, which will be in a different video. The transmission, the engine and transmission, I'll do a whole separate video just for that. And then we gotta cut out the cab components, run another set of wires to the back here, and then make some other kind of junction box for the power to go to the tail of the truck, because we got tail lights on the back there, as well our fifth wheel, basic rough fifth wheel cut out, ready to go. Will be sitting about there, give or take a little bit. So we're gonna have some cross members in there, as well as the rail system for the fifth wheel plate to move up and down. It's for when you're trucking, you want to disperse the weight out a little bit better, you just move your fifth wheel plate a little bit. So I will get all that going, and then I'll bring you back for some more. Okay, so here we go. So we've got all the axles put in place, all the lines are secured, air tanks, there's your engine, and as I said, I will be doing a video all on its own just about how to make an engine for your truck. There's quite a bit involved with doing it for size wise, etc. So I will do one completely separate for that. But as you can see, you get quite a bit of detail in these guys. These parts right here are actually going to be going out to the air filters on the opposite end on each side of the cab. So we got the transmission in there, and then here's all our drive line, our front tires steer, of course. Here's the transmission right there, drive shaft going up into those guys right there. This particular customer has asked for ground effects on his truck. So I went ahead and I installed the ground effects, and then have to put in a on-off switch for these guys. And your battery pack is, you just find wherever looks like it's going to be a decent spot to put it, where you got room. Then of course you got to test them out. Turn off the light, see if it makes a difference. There you go. So looks like we got a pretty good little glow going on there. And now we're gonna start with the cab, or the hood and the cab. We're eventually going to get a fifth wheel plate put on there onto the middle axle. It's typically where they go, is about the middle axle. When I used to run truck, I used to always have it just a smidge behind center on the middle axle. That's how I like to drive my trucks. So we've got ourselves, this is going to be a Kenworth. So with Kenworth, you got to have the Kenworth stairs, what I call them, which is the stairs go up over top of a fuel tank, right? So your fuel tanks are on the side like that, and then your stairs go up over, will work right into the fuel tanks themselves. So again, with my stencil pieces, here we go. So I only make stencils for the parts that are used a lot, like making a lot of them, right? So we're just gonna make the opening a little bit bigger on this guy for my stencil, so that's not a big deal when I draw them out. I'll just make sure I leave a little extra room here so that we can make a bigger opening for the fuel tank. And then that guy goes on the side there. Yeah, you can see that. That guy will go over top of that. That, of course, will be right into the cab itself. And so there's my hood template. This is pretty standard shape for just about any big truck you're going to do. The big difference being is a Peterbilt. This, you would have your fender on there, and then the whole thing would lift up. With a Kenworth, the fender is split, so only half of this actually goes up. It overlaps when it comes back down, but I'll show you all that here as we get along. And then there's your basic cab, right? Pretty much every truck out there is going to have a cab like this. Peterbilts are basically saying they're a little more rounded than the Kenworth. Kenworth is a little bit harsher, but they're all pretty much the same. And then of course our stack. This is right here. This is the exhaust that goes from here. It'll go down, over, and then straight up, and then we'll have our stacks coming down like that. And yeah, so without further ado, I gotta do some drawing here. I pre-cut, sanded to 120 grit. I didn't do a finer sand on this, of course. This is ash, beautiful wood. You got different parts of the tree. Give you an example. This is also ash. This is actually from this right here when I was cutting it down. I made some thinner pieces so that I can have for cabinets and whatnot have you. So there's a good example of all the different out of one piece of wood, all the different kinds you'll get. Here's another one. This is what we use to make our axles with. All the same piece of wood. either get yourself a scribe marker, and then you can trace out your patterns on it. I just like to use just regular HB pencil, whatever, nothing fancy, like a quarter or something like that it costs. But most importantly, you want to make sure that it's good and sharp, because you want to be able to get right next to those lines so that when you're cutting it out, you're getting the exact same size as your stencil. So we'll start with some hood pieces. Now, I don't like to waste wood, as I've said, so I always try to maximize the amount of wood being used so that there's next to no waste. So that's good. We'll be using a bandsaw to cut these pieces so you can get them pretty close. You don't want them touching, because you got to give a little bit of room for the blade. I think the blade on the bandsaw is about like a 1/16 of an inch wide, I think, or thick. Perfect. Okay. Now for the cab. When you go to make your own templates, if that's what you choose to do, I recommend getting a hold of either a scroll saw, a jigsaw, or even one of them coping saws, so you can cut these out. The smaller the blade, the better it is when you're making stencils, because you want them to be pretty precise. They don't have to be perfectly smooth. You just want to be sure that you got it pretty good, as this is showing you here, right? So I got that part cut out, so there's the door. So now I just got to line my door up inside. So if I hadn't cut this out with my scroll saw, this would be quite a bit wider and it could mess you up. I know it used to mess me up at the beginning. Okay, so now we've got our pieces marked out here. This hood piece, cab, which is also partial with the sleeper that's going to be going on here. The reason why I do this with this stencil part is when I go to put my stack in, it fits right here absolutely perfect, and then you're not trying to mess around trying to get all your angles and everything right, so that when the stack comes up the side, it's just nice and clean and easy, and you don't have to worry about it. What we got left here is going to be the little rectangle this off, squared off, and these two pieces in this, all three will go together, so that'll be the main part of the hood. And then of course we still got the grill and whatnot to put in there. With Kenworth, the lights are built into the fenders. So as the fender goes on here, right, so the fender's gonna be about here, give or take, and then right about here is where the lights will actually be. It's hard to do it 3D, but you get the idea what I'm trying to get at. And actually, I think I have a stencil too. Let me just check. Seeing it offhand. I know I got one, I just don't know where I put it. Anyways, so there's your Peterbilt step. So Peterbilt will have your fuel tanks right underneath the driver's side door. There's two of them, right? So I make this. This slides right into the frame. The air tank sits right here, and then the other tank sits down in here. This is basically the same thing except for it's a fuel tank. Okay, well, I'm going to get these pieces cut out, and once I'm done that, I will bring you back.